As a tourist, it's not difficult to handle 99% of situations without knowing Japanese, but when you leave and look back at the experience, it's easy to realize how much more you could have experienced the country if you knew the language. Like most everyone who makes the trip to Japan, the first thing I wanted to do upon returning was learn more Japanese. I previously used things like Rosetta Stone and apps like Duolingo, but when I've looked more into language learning, I continually find advice stating to actually learn hiragana first, or at least in tandem with the other stuff you're doing. Most people, myself included, are immediately going to feel a specific way about being told to start with the written part of a language, as honestly, it's seen as pretty boring. It seems a lot more exciting to learn words and phrases that you can immediately use as opposed to the parts of words and sentence structures. But I've recently found that knowing the basics of the words written gives a very strong foundation for learning to better speak the language and assists you with your overall language understanding and immersion. I say this as an absolute beginner. I've wanted to learn Japanese going back to middle school, and yeah, I've learned nearly nothing at all in that time. Welcome to an isekai level of a game title, Learn Japanese RPG, Hiragana Forbidden Speech. Shockingly, this game has taken something I always felt I didn't want to learn and turned it into something I became a lot more excited about. On its exterior, the game appears to resemble a generic title created in RPG Maker, but the reality is that this game is designed to teach you hiragana in an engaging way that I believe to be surprisingly effective and makes use of some clever mechanics which don't beat you down, but makes you want to succeed. After a strange meteorite crashes a year earlier, you start off in a small village at night, and you quickly end up in a very disturbing situation involving a mysterious master teaching you basic hiragana while you fight spirits known as shinrei. You're introduced to the concept that hiragana is part of an ancient and forbidden language which your character has a strong urge to learn after being able to see the shinrei. You wander into a spooky forest and eventually even have your first giant boss encounter. If that wasn't weird enough, the story then takes you to what seems like a house for the mentally ill, and you learn you're not the only one who mumbles this language and sees these spirits. There's even a doctor specializing in the study of what they kind of deem to be part of some mass hysteria. I can't say I found the game to be a complete mastercraft of story weaving, but the intro is compelling and fun enough, especially considering the focal point of playing this title is to learn. A lot of lines of dialogue are voice acted, which was a really pleasant experience. I found the VO to be rather quality and definitely is a big help in the language learning aspect of the game, as well as just making it feel like that much more polished than a slap together RPG Maker title, which I definitely do not think this game is at all. The real meat and potatoes of this title, as I've said a lot already, is the actual language learning focus of the game. In short, I'd say this is the most fun I've ever had learning Japanese, and I think there's a ton of really cleverly made choices in mechanics which really fosters that idea. The best part about the game is its initial complete lack of a punishment system. As an RPG player, it's kind of weird, but as a language learner, I really appreciated it. The biggest part of the language learning system is the random RPG battles you fight, and within the simple concept comes a larger number of complex ideas. The game features random battles, and a little later into the beginning of the game, you actually get to control them. If you want to fight monsters non-stop, the game allows you to do so, and if you don't want to fight at all, you can just turn random battles off. But as the game tells you, the less you fight, the less you learn. The battles are what you'd mostly expect. There's a difference between playing on keyboard and mouse and playing with a controller, but for the purposes of this review, I'm going to solely talk about the controller play on both PC and the Steam Deck. When you enter a battle, you'll see your enemy on the screen the same as any typical old-school turn-based RPG classic like Final Fantasy. Time moves constantly, and every so many seconds, the enemy will attack you and damage your HP. If you reach 0 HP, you'll be booted from the battle and back to the map, but there's no punishment. To stop this from happening, you'll need to attack the enemy, and you do this by selecting one of a few choices that surround a middle box containing either hiragana, set of hiragana, or romaji. So basically, you're thrown into a multiple choice situation, and if you get the answer correct, you'll do some damage to the enemy, and if you get it wrong, you have to hope to succeed on the next one, trying to outspeed the baddie doing damage to you. That's the battle system in basics, but there's more. When you get an answer correct, you'll gain experience points, or EXP, for that symbol. The more you get it right, the more powerful the attack becomes when you answer correct for that symbol. That symbol, though, actually becomes less common to see during the fight. This basically makes it so that the hiragana and phrases you fail at the most, you'll see the most, hoping that you'll better your performance with them. I really love this idea as a learner, as it kind of forces you as the player to always be challenged and not just rely on sticking with what you know well. It forces you to work on what you struggle with the most. It also has a de-leveling feature where when you fail with the word, you'll lose EXP and eventually your level with that word if you fail too much with it. This forces you to remember what you learned or suffer consequences of seeing it more and having it do less damage to the enemies. The punishments in this game are less tangible, but I found them effective at making me have personal feelings about my progress and lack of progress. Along with the individual and combined hiragana EXP, you also gain it for your character, and you'll level up your base stats or your HP similar to any other RPG you've played. Leveling up will add new and sometimes more complicated hiragana or phrases to the roster of options thrown at you during battle. This entire system is truly dedicated to you learning. I really appreciate there's a lot of ways to access the hiragana and words you've learned, and can even practice writing them for yourself when you look at all the menus the game has to offer. I'm just starting my learning now and taking my time with this game, but I already have been able to more quickly identify hiragana I see online, and it makes me really excited at the prospect of being able to read sometime in the future, which will come in handy during our trip to Osaka next year. Overall, I'd say this game is an excellent learning tool in a mediocre RPG format. Most of the time, saying something like that would be a massive insult, but the focused intent with this game is to help you learn in a fun way, as opposed to offering a truly deep adventure. The story and experience are there, most certainly, but I think it's a stretch to say that this game would be great for someone who was wholly interested in a video game and not at all interested in learning a language. If you're interested in a Japanese learning tool, though, and you enjoy classic RPGs, this game is absolutely something I could not recommend enough. At the current price of $19.99 on Steam, I think it's an absolute treasure worth experiencing. Use my link in the description below to buy the game yourself and help the page. The link is just for tracking so the dev knows I sent you to look at it, and it offers no discounts or monetary compensation for me, but it is super appreciated. If you guys like the content, hit the thumbs up. If you don't, hit the thumbs down, and subscribe to Otaku for more anime news, reviews, and gaming.